Hello and welcome to Biz Daily. I'm Jon Jordan. So the big news we're looking at today is Glu Mobile's financials. So we're in the financial kind of a reporting period for public companies. Glu Mobile has announced its financial figures for 2015. So the financial figures they actually announced were for the October to December quarter, which is its Q4. So basically we get the entire year's worth of financials for Glu. So I'll have to look at my cheat sheet to make sure I'm getting it right. So for the entire year, Glu had revenues of $250 million. That's pretty much the same as last year, so up about 1%. So nothing kind of staggering there, which is kind of, I guess, the start of the bad news for Glu, really. 2014 was a very good year for it, particularly because the Kim Kardashian Hollywood game kind of came out of nowhere, or did come out of nowhere, and proved very successful, and some other games it was working on did pretty well, like the Hunter franchise did well. So 2014 was a very good year for Glu. 2015 has not been a worse year, but it's not kind of continued its growth kind of pattern. So we kind of dig into kind of some of the games that have worked for it, some of the games that haven't, and looked at some reasons why. So Kim Kardashian Hollywood is still Glu's biggest game. So for 2015 it was about 30% of revenue just on that one game, which shows how big it is. I mean, that game's in decline now. Like a lot of these kind of free-to-play games, it's, you know, it peaks and then people kind of stop playing it, everyone churns in the end, as they say. But it's still very profitable, and it's still kind of, so the decline is manageable. It's, you know, Glu can tell how that game's going to operate, and going to make still a lot of money for Glu and Kim Kardashian. Interestingly, Glu's second biggest game is a game called Racing Rivals, which is actually from a company, Psy Games, that Glu acquired. And that's a pretty hardcore racing game, kind of like a CSR racing game, a bit more hardcore, I would suggest. And that's, say, 17%. So between those two games, it's almost 50% of Glu's revenue is just those two games, and then it has lots of other franchises. So it has its Frontline Commando and Deer Hunter's still pretty big for Glu, and it has as it says, it has a portfolio effect. But for 2015, the two big games that didn't happen for Glu. And it's kind of worth looking at what happened there. So the first one was it had the James Bond license. So Glu has been looking at, obviously has a lot of celebrity licenses, has done in the past, has done quite a lot of film licensing stuff, so stuff that did a Terminator game, and there's a few other things kind of signed up, but it had the James Bond license. So obviously James Bond film Spectre came out in November. It didn't do a game specifically based on that, because it's hard to do a game just based on a single film, because obviously that game, that film finishes quite quickly, and even after, you know, the DVDs and stuff, after 6 months, no one's really interested in that film. It's kind of old hat. So it kind of took an interesting approach. It called it the game was called James Bond World of Espionage, and it was a bit more of a, I guess, kind of a game of war type approach. So very menu driven, very more of an RPG. It wasn't a strategy game, but kind of an RPG where you're kind of building a kind of a squad of spies and kind of building them up, and it was a lot of people didn't like it because there wasn't not really any gameplay, but very stat driven, very kind of meta game driven. I actually quite liked it. You know, graphically it wasn't the most exciting game, because those menu driven games kind of aren't, but kind of interesting, but just didn't work at all. I mean, absolutely. Glu didn't really, I think they saw the figures weren't really coming out as they wanted, didn't really market it very much, didn't really get any organic traffic, didn't really get pushed by any app stores, and just basically didn't do anything at all. Download wise didn't do anything, and certainly grossing wise didn't do anything at all. So I think Glu thought that game had the potential, at least, to be quite big, although not a mass market appeal. So that was kind of the first kind of problem for Glu. The second one, which was again, came out of nowhere a little bit. There was a big announcement that it had done a deal with Katy Perry. So Glu on its social side now has obviously Kim Kardashian and a few other the Kardashian kind of crews make games with, and it announced it had Katy Perry, also has Britney Spears announced in its part of its financials. It now has Taylor Swift. It also has who else? Gordon Ramsay, the chef, and Jason Statham, the kind of hard man, has done kind of either has games announced with them or projects ongoing with them. So a lot of celebrities. But the Katy Perry game, they basically Katy Perry Pop, it was called. Came out quite suddenly in December, not a lot of fanfare, just kind of like appeared on the App Store, and was obviously based on the Kim Kardashian game, but had some odd kind of twists to it that made it a bit more complex. It's kind of nice ideas, but just didn't quite gel. Obviously, because Katy Perry is a musician, so there was a kind of a music side of it, and that kind of was rather than the fashion side. And you had this kind of quirky thing where you could put on some glasses and look at and get kind of Katy Perry vision, and you could see the game world in a slightly more kind of surreal kind of way, and see like the the left shark and all this kind of weird stuff. It was kind of interesting, but I don't think quite gelled well. And that game, I mean, it's almost surprising, more surprising than the James Bond game. Actually, Katy Perry pop just didn't find any traction at all. So it had two big games that I think Glu thought would have added, tens of millions of dollars to its kind of financial year. Maybe not the Katy Perry one because it was released right at the end, but two games it thought was going to be successful just didn't, and they weren't just not a little bit successful. They were basically didn't do anything at all. And this, I guess, comes back to a kind of harder issue for Glu, because Glu has been doing free-to-play games for a long time. It's one of the first, so it's one of the first big floated companies to basically stop doing paid games and moved to free-to-play, and did so kind of fairly successfully. It had a lot of experience in that area. It's been running free-to-play games, a lot of free-to-play games it's released as well over the years. And you would think Glu would have had the operational experience to know what was going on with its games. And actually, in an earnings call, the CEO kind of surprisingly said that basically they totally messed up on those two games. They knew, in retrospect, the numbers on them, the metrics weren't good enough, and they put them out there anyway. Bit of waste of time, and kind of they've had to let some people go, so I think like 60 redundancies, and they've brought in some new kind of C-level, like a CTO and a creative director over all its studios. It has lots of studios around the world, like kind of Russia and Brazil and China, and so it's quite hard to coordinate. I think some of those teams, which is maybe one of the issues it's had with the quality of these two games. But I think it was still a little bit surprising. Most people thought that Glu was actually quite good at operating free-to-play games, and now it appears that certainly on the level of these two games, it's been absolutely not very good at all, and not had any kind of or much internal rigor. And now those games are basically, it's kind of suggested those two games are kind of dead. You can't do anything with them. They're still live on the App Store, but it's not really sure for Katy Perry and James Bond what it does now with those licenses, which are still operational. So difficult times again for Glu. It's gone through difficult times before and done, come out of them. It made a loss for the year as well, which is never good for a company to make a loss. It has got some money in the bank. It's got like $180 million in the bank. It's got a big investor in the shape of Tencent, so it's not going to go bust anytime soon. But I guess the more long-term issue for Glu is its share price has gone down quite a bit. So at one point it was up over, or getting on for $6 a share. Now it's down to about kind of $2 a share. So its market cap, so the value of the company in terms of its shares, is about $270 million now, which is not far off what its annual revenue is, which is never a good sign. And obviously, if you put the cash in there as well, that's suggesting that investors are not very happy with the direction that Glu's taking. So I think 2016 a big year for Glu. I've always thought, will it be an acquisition target for someone? It's kind of difficult now. Tencent has a big chunk of it, but it's not to say that either Tencent can't buy it or someone else could come in, because it still has some good brands, and I think there's a lot of kind of good value with Glu. You just kind of have to see now, particularly it's got all these celebrity brands. I think, could you do a good Britney Spears game? Absolutely. If you could be quite lateral on how you use that license. Taylor Swift. Again, obviously, great license to have. Can you mess up a game with Taylor Swift in it? Of course you can. But I think hopefully Glu will take the learnings, as they say, from its hard 2015 and come up with a better 2016. Anyway, that was the news for today. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel, and then you won't miss any of the news that's coming out of the mobile games industry. And there's lots of news coming out of the mobile games industry. Hope to see you soon.